So you're planning to build a new home and you love the mid-century style. So far, so charming. But probably a lot of the builders you're talking to have portfolios filled with farmhouse chic, and the designers you're talking to all tip towards the Scandinavian modern. None of that feels particularly mid-century to you. Where can you go for help? Most new builds are going to feel a little off to someone who loves the mid-century style. Too much great room, too much open plan, too large, too sterile, too grandiose. Where's the coziness, the wood grain, the flow? You've seen some amazing mid-century homes online, around your town, on your travels. Why is it so hard to get that built? The builders and designers you're talking to aren't bad at their jobs. They're just catering to a market that primarily doesn't value mid-century design as much as you and I do. Hi, I'm Della. I'm an architect, and I specialize in helping mid-century homeowners plan remodels that keep the charm alive in their house or put it back if it was never there to begin with. And I spend all day, every day thinking about how to make good homes better using the mid-century Masterplan method. This is a process that takes into account the needs of the people that live in the house, the existing conditions of the house itself, and what particular flavor of mid-century style appeals to them most, tests a bunch of options, and develops a game plan that helps homeowners plan work they can do on their house now in one phase, or over the next several years or decade in multiple phases, so that the entire house will feel intentional and tied together. It's the method I follow with my own design clients, and I also teach it in workshops and classes to homeowners that want to plan their own home remodels. If you've been flipping through the phone book looking for the mid-century architect or builder in your town who can help you make this happen, that person might not exist. So, am I the architect you should come to help design a brand new home in the mid-century style? Unfortunately, no, I'm not. That's not a service I provide, but don't panic. I'm going to share with you my best advice for infusing mid-century design ideas into a new build in today's video. Stay tuned. To make new construction feel as mid-century as possible, you're going to want to keep it small. Not tiny, but sort of Goldilocks style just right. Not too big. That's going to allow you to spend more of your money on design features, to have more room on the site for flow between inside spaces and outside, and to put more attention into each of the spaces. You're going to want to invest in woodwork, in custom built-ins, and in details throughout the house that evoke the mid-century style, even if they don't copy from it directly. And maybe look around for some retro or vintage materials to include in the new construction. You're going to slip in mid-century details and materiality choices at every opportunity that you can. And you're going to avoid modern 2026 trends like the plague. So just say no to brushed nickel, to white siding and black windows. I think of this as the modern skeleton house, and it's going to go out of date in 5 years. And subway tile in any tiled surface. That's not for us. Before we get into that, I won't help you plan your new build design in a mid-century style. Why not? I get this request fairly frequently, and I'm making this video today because someone just emailed and asked me again if I could help them with this project. Most broadly, my reason for having to say no to this request is capacity. The way that I work on mid-century master plans allows me to help a large number of people every year, getting deeply into their needs, their houses, the details of them, and give people just what they need in order to make a great connection with a local builder, sometimes even a local design build firm, and get the project done in the shortest amount of time and with great results. It's also related to my style and preferences as a designer. I love to work with the small, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but really, I love to tweak, to adjust, to work against existing conditions. I don't enjoy starting from a blank page. Ultimately, I built the business model for Mid-Mod Midwest around my preference to respond, react, and remodel. I want to keep the existing building stock of great, charming, solid mid-century homes functional and beloved. All of that is why, if you come to me asking for me to use my design expertise to help you build a new home in the mid-century style, my first question is always going to be, have you thoroughly exhausted your options of finding a very charming mid-century home you could adjust to fit your lifestyle needs, or a not quite charming enough home in the right place and scale for you that we can add more mid-century detail to and retrofit to be more mid-century charming than it was when it started? And I know that the answer is probably yes, you already have looked into that. I just had to ask the question. Assuming that is off the table, here's what I've got for you on how to start from scratch and create a mid-century aesthetic. The first and perhaps most important thing I can tell you is to keep your house as small as possible. That might sound like I'm telling you to make it very, very small, and I'm not. I'm just asking you to make each individual space and the house as a whole as small as it can be. This is also my approach when I'm working on existing buildings or planning any sort of an addition. I want to find the minimum viable scale of any space. That doesn't mean it's too compact, it just means it has the capacity to be cozy. And money and energy, resources that we save on square footage can be devoted to other things like high quality materials, vintage pieces, extra levels of craft, more built-in details. This is an area where you're going to have to reflect. Think about places you've lived in the past, your existing home right now. Think about where you might be able to squeeze out square footage or where you have felt too pinched, too small in the past. Start to assemble an arrangement of rooms that are each just as big as they need to be. You can also take a leaf from the mid-century book by allowing spaces to do double duty, something that serves one purpose in the morning and another in the evening, an office that functions as a guest room, a basement that might have a functional daytime office for an adult that can be closed away and be a teenage den in the evening or on weekends. Just as I would advise one of my remodeling clients, you want to look at retro examples. And for you, you want to look at retro floor plans specifically. One advantage you have over someone who is remodeling an existing house is that you do have the ability to start from scratch on layout. So I'm going to recommend that you check out the floor plans of mid-century houses that you've visited and admired. Check out the archival resources at usmodernist.org and take a look online for records from the National Plan Service. This was an organization that provided very modest scale plans with a few elevations or interior details for every year starting from 1902 and going into the 1990s. Particularly anything from the mid-century era are going to give you fun examples. Roof lines, overhangs, connections between living spaces and patios, and the arrangement of bedrooms in a compact way, sharing bathrooms. You might choose to scale up, add on to, or tweak some of those ideas, but this is a great jumping off point for a general layout that is both mid-century in flavor and compact in scale. Here's a wonderful fellow architect resource I want to point you to if you're considering a new home build right now. Check out the works of Sarah Susenka. She wrote a series of books in the late 90s or early 2000s, actually, called The Not So Big House, The Not So Big Yard, The Not So Big Remodel. While she's not in any way associated with mid-century design, her personal design aesthetic is more like modern cottage. She's an excellent resource on building small, investing in quality built-ins and woodwork, and investing in quality and beautiful details rather than square footage as a pure value. The next hot tip to make sure a new build feels as mid-century as possible is to pay attention to woodwork and to built-ins generally. Mid-century houses, by their default, contained a level of built-ins and craft and woodwork that are kind of luxurious today. Houses built in the early 50s had solid oak floors as a default. Don't be afraid of veneer. The door behind me is hollow core with a veneer cover, but it's still a lovely example of mid-century design, and you can find this at a lumber yard today. Substituting builder basic bedroom closets for bedroom built-in walls can give you both an accent wall and more practical storage than just your typical cavity with a rod and shelf in it and sliding doors. Built-ins belong in more places than just the kitchen and bathroom. Think about an entertainment center in a den, panel walls surrounding it and coordinating with it, a clever knee wall storage area separating the entry from a living room, and, as I mentioned before, built-ins in every bedroom. To make a new build feel more MCM, you're looking for organic materials to turn up in as many places as possible. So the wood grain of your cabinets is a major contributor to that, but you can also think about having field stone around a hearth, brick or stone that turns up both outside the house and in some detailed area inside, and tile inspired by vintage sources in the right places. One of the most off-putting qualities of new build homes is how sterile they can feel. Just an expanse of gray plank flooring, white drywall walls, and painted trim. Never stop digging for opportunities to bring natural materials back into the house. You can also combat that sterility, that box-like vacancy, by building in mid-century shapes. This might be a slat semi-privacy wall, a backwards sloping angle in the bath cabinets to give you a little bit more footroom underneath and a nice deep counter above. Anywhere you can bring in something that feels more playful, more atomic, more charming is an absolute win. Generally, keep your eye pointed toward the past for your inspiration and avoid any trendy popular choices from the last few years. This advice is the same for you as it is for all of my current Ready to Remodel students and my homeowners who come to me looking for a custom master plan. Any choice you make for your house today that's trending on Pinterest or pulled from HGTV is going to be a little overplayed in a few years, slightly out of date in 5, and calling for a new remodel in just 10 years. This is not something you want to do with your investment of home building dollars any more than you want to do with your remodeling dollars. For my remodel clients, I advise them to source their design ideas from the year or decade that their home was built in. Now, obviously, it's not going to work for you, but you can still choose an era, early mid-century, 60s mod, the stain of the wood grain, the shape of the hardware, the popular details and colorways from that moment. Choosing from that palette will keep your house anchored in a different time, and so it can't go off trend and become out of date in a few years from right now. So at the end of the day, you can't hire me to design you a new build mid-century style house. That's simply not the work I do, but you can avail yourself of many of my podcast episodes, other videos on this YouTube channel, or online classes and workshops. I'll particularly direct you to my More Than a Mood Board workshop. This is a 2-hour class on how to assemble a style guide for your remodel, but could work just as well for your new build home. Going from the kind of inspiration you might find on Pinterest and boiling it down slowly into a list of finished materials that add up to the style of house you are looking to create. Going through that class will give you an excellent resource for any designer or builder that you work with on new construction and help them see your vision for mid-century style. All of this should stand you in good stead if you're trying to create a new build home that incorporates as much of the charm and features of mid-century era as possible. But what if you live in a newer home that you wish savored more of the mid-century era? Well, some of the same concepts from this video apply to you, but there are some other approaches and advice I have for someone modifying an existing newer home back into the mid-century style. For you, stick around for next week's video where I'll be talking about how to add in features like clever built-ins, more wood grain, nice materials, even just vintage furniture pieces to a house built after 1980. See you next week.